regular Sunday, April 12th, Easter Sunday. Happy Easter for everyone throughout the world. We are live at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, all the time zones in between, and all around the world. And today's a special day, of course. It's Easter. We're all celebrating the resurrection of Christ, our leader in heaven, our Father, the ones who created this planet, who husbanded and guided the animals and the human race and guided our history and helps guide each of us individually to become better souls. And guess what? Today is the perfect chapter for Easter, because today is the chapter talking about be perfect, chapter 17. So how do we become perfect, and what did Jesus mean about being perfect? Well, let's see what Allan Kardec wrote in his wonderful book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. Now, first, before I finish this, for those listening to us on YouTube or BitChute, please subscribe to this channel. Please hit the bell so you're notified. Please leave a thumb up and share this video. That helps the algorithm. It helps us spread Spiritism far and wide, and people will learn about what the other side of the veil, what it's like to be not in our physical body. And let me tell you, the easy answer, it's from everything I've read, and not just Spiritist literature, it's much better. So let's get into, this is exciting today, let's get into Chapter 17, Be Perfect. Let me hide this. Bring up chapter 17. So, this is what Allan Kardec wrote in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44 and 46 to 48. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. For if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. So, then Allan Kardec writes, since God possesses infinite perfection in all things, the proposition be perfect as your celestial Father is perfect, if taken literally, would presuppose the possibility of attaining absolute perfection. If it were given to man to be as perfect as his Creator, then he would become his equal, which is inadmissible. But the people to whom Jesus spoke did not understand this nuance, which caused him to limit himself to the presentation of a model and tell them they must strive to reach it. Those words then must be understood in the sense of relative perfection, that which humanity is capable of achieving and which most nearly approaches the divinity. What does this perfection consist of? Jesus said, in loving one's enemies, in doing good to those who hate us, in praying for those who persecute us. In this way, he shows that the essence of perfection is charity in its most ample form, because it implies the practice of all the other virtues. In fact, by observing the results of all the vices, and even of simple defects, it can be recognized that there is not one which does not more or less disfigure the sentiment of charity, because all of them have their beginning in selfishness and pride, which are the negation of it. And of course, in the Spirits book, they talk about what is the worst defect we have, which is selfishness, which from selfishness comes everything else. And he talks about becomes pride. And here, Allan Kardec also says, you're not as charitable because of selfishness. I'll carry on. This is due to the fact that everything which overstimulates our self-esteem destroys, or at least weakens, the elements of true charity, which are benevolence and indulgence, abnegation, which means, don't give yourself everything. Love for one's fellow creatures, which extends for one's love for one's enemies. That cannot be allied to any effect which is against charity. Therefore, for this reason, it is always an indication of a greater or lesser moral superiority. From this, it follows that the degree of perfection is in direct relation to this extent of this love. It was for this reason that Jesus, after having given his disciples the rules of charity and all that they contain of the most sublime, said to them, "Be perfect as your celestial Father is perfect." So Allan Kardec goes on and, and gives us some more detail. The truly good person is the one who complies with the law of justice, love, and charity in their highest degree of purity. If they examine their conscience concerning their own actions, they will ask themselves if they have violated those laws, if they had practiced any evil, if they have done all the good that was possible, if they have voluntarily disregarded any occasion to be useful, if anyone has any complaint to make of them, and finally, if they have done to others everything that they would wish done to themselves. So let's look at that, because that sentence, when he starts out, if they examine their conscience, that I believe that the idea of examining your conscience is one of the very first important steps we can make in our quest for spiritual improvement towards perfection. What is our conscience? There are two things. Now, a lot of people complain, let's say I believe in Spiritism and I believe in karma and I have to pay for my past wrongs, but what do I know what to do? What am I paying for if I don't have memories of my past life? And, that is always an excellent question. So there's a couple things that we need to be told. The first is the spirit world is so intelligent and so smart and creative. It doesn't matter that you know or not. It matters that they create the test, the trial for you to elicit what emotional response they wish to, in order for you to, one, know that the wrong that you created in the past, even though you don't know what that wrong is, for you to know that you never want to do what you have done to somebody else again, because that was probably done to you in some manner or form. So that's the first step. The second is there are two things that come with you when you are deposited into this dense body, right? First is your instinct. You kind of know, and your instinct's been honed over thousands and thousands of years, and who knows how many lives. It keeps coming with you. So you kind of feel when the person is right, the situation is right, that dark alley, nah, don't go down that dark alley, right? The next thing is your conscience, and your conscience is the set of divine laws, right? So now there are laws that our conscience tells us that we should follow or not, but we all know that there's no such thing, and the spirits tell us the same thing. There's no such thing as black and white decisions. So therefore, if you're a very young, immature, primitive spirit, your conscience is telling you things, but you can easily rationalize away because it doesn't really make sense in this situation. I have to live, so I have to kill this person, right? So therefore, as instinct hones itself over many lives, your conscience, you just keep creating this giant law library of case histories, so you know what to do in all those gray areas. Which brings me to the next point. The way to really start ascending is to listen to your conscience, because when you start first thinking that you want to listen to your conscience, then you really need to, and you need to practice that, and you need to get into the habit of it. Because let's all be honest with ourselves. I'm sure there are exceptions, but in your teens and most probably your 20s, you spend half your time rationalizing away why, I could do that, right? I won't feel too guilty, and that will leave me after a while. That is what you need to stop. And I know if you always follow your conscience, I can guarantee you, you won't be as successful and you probably won't make as much money. And you may not have as much immediate pleasure in when you want it. That's all true. But you will start on that ramp of spiritual improvement. And those things of money and immediate gratification will become less important to you naturally. It's the same thing when people ask, well, I've read about heaven and I don't like the idea of, not eating food. I like my food. Well, yes, I'm sure you do. But what you're missing is the fact that there are so many other exciting things to do, because the people who really like eating their food, and I don't blame them at all. I like my food too, is you do that because that is a pleasurable thing to do. But everyone notices that when they are watching a game or they're doing something very exciting, they forget about their hunger and they forget about food. They don't even want to think about that. Well, the same thing will happen when you get into heaven. That will become such a lesser priority, you won't think about it again. And as you learn, now, of course, when you're first in heaven, people, when they're first there, they eat, kind of regularly. And then you finally learn how to supplement your body and give your body sustenance by water and air and all around and light. So those things that you think are so important to you, as you rise up spiritually, they naturally fall down in their priorities. And it happens. It's happened to me. It happens to many people. I have a friend of mine who has gone through, bouts of unemployment, and he had money, and then the money was gone, and his credit cards went up, and then he kept trying to live the same lifestyle, and the credit cards went up, and then finally, I really believe the spirit world was saying, okay, we're going to teach you this lesson again, and he's finally got it. He says, now he earns money, he's paying off his cards and buying the latest wine or whatever. It's not that important to him anymore. It's not even on his radar. He's concentrating on cleaning out his spiritual baggage, right? Getting rid of his material goods and living as simply, and he's much more happy than before. We can all do the same, but we have to start. And of course, this is what Jesus said, be perfect. And to be perfect, you need to start on the path to perfection. So let me bring up one more example for everyone. And that is, so you might ask, okay, well, how do I really start? What's the path for perfection? How do I, ascend spiritually? Well, there is a great poem in the book, Missives of Hope. And this was a poem by Henri Louis. And let me bring that up for everyone. And the poem is called Keep Always. And this poem is what I base my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, on. And what I did is I wrote a chapter about each stanza in this poem. And I explore what was meant, by what Henri Louis said in just a few words, usually 3, 5 words, 6 words, probably at most, and how you can do it. So let's go through this poem. This is how you approach your spiritual ascendancy. And the poem is keep always. Keep always trust in God in yourself. A serene conscience. And these things, look at these things as you see this. This is kind of how you start and you build on one after the other. Trust in God in yourself, a serene conscience, time spent on productive matters, a constructive speech, a prayer allied to work, hope in action, an industrious patience, a dispassionate opinion. Let's look at these first ones. So, aren't these the foundation, right? First, you've got to have faith, right? Trust in God and in yourself. And as Spiritism tells us all the time, through your rational faith, you need to have that firm foundation. Then you need to clear your conscience. You need to take away that stress and follow your conscience. And then once you can start following your conscience, then start working on things that are spiritually productive for you. And then as you start that, when you speak, right, this is the first thing, because now our thoughts come later. But when you speak, don't gossip, don't put down people, don't be overly sarcastic. And then you start, okay, as we pray for good people. Let's do that. Apply to our work, right? I remember I saw this program, and this was on YouTube. It was a program with Chico Xavier and a news person in Chico that said, Chico, what do you have to say to the people of Brazil? And he said, you need to work more and complain less. And that was his words to the people of Brazil. I thought, oh, okay, there you go. And of course, that's what this, I've read that many times, right? And people have probably heard these things as they always say a good spirit understands his trials and doesn't complain about them. And of course, when I read that first, I go, well, that wasn't me, because I was complaining about everything that happened to me bad. But eventually you don't, right? You understand what they're there. And then hope in action, right? You hope, you pray, you think of the best. And then industrious patience. Now that is tough, right? When you need to have patience, that was very hard for me. When I wanted something, I wanted it now. But as the spirits tell us, everything has a time and a place, right? There is a season for everything under the sun. And sometimes, just like when you have a child, you teach them over and over again. And that lesson may not be learned for years, maybe 10 years. But you give them little seeds. And then you don't force that person to learn something, because that doesn't work. They have to want to do it. And a dispassionate opinion. You look at people, and you look at people over many lifetimes and what they have, where they are on the trend line of the spiritual maturity, and you think about that. So you don't condemn them immediately for how bad they are now. Now you may be, a bit ticked, right? You may be disappointed and sad, but you don't hate the person. You just understand, well, they've got something to learn. Then they go on how to be better. So they say the blessing of comprehension. Of course, that comes with more and more studying of Spiritism, is when you can really understand that everyone is at a different space within their long trek up towards perfection, right? Then you can forgive a lot more. A participation in everyone's progress. Help when you can. The smallest little thing is to help. A compassionate attitude. Be helpful. Don't lord it over people, and just be as nice as possible under whatever circumstances your friends or passerbys or whoever is in trouble. Truth enlightened by love. So know yourself, know the state of other people, but love them for it. You don't have to tell them an obvious truth like, oh, you failed completely, you're a loser, right? That could be the truth in a certain matter, but that's not how you want to put it. You want to point out that they may want to analyze their actions, but love them for it. Oblivion of evils, right? Get rid of those primitive emotions. This is another hard one. Happiness in your commitments. When you have commitments, don't keep saying they'll say, oh, I don't want to do that, right? It's like your child, when they're younger and, 7 or 8 or whatever, and you argue with them more about to clean the room or not than the time it would take them to pick up the toys in the room. Just when you have commitments, do them and get them over with. Unconditional forgiveness of offenses. We've talked about this a lot, but this is hard. But the more you study Spiritism, the more you can do that. And this is why the next one is so, and this is why you can see these all go on one of the after the other. A devotion to study, because really a devotion to study will just cement everything above that and make it even easier. A gesture of kindness, right? Try to be kind and encouraging smile. Encourage everyone, right? Give them, you know, be happy, be a beacon, an example to others. Spontaneity to assist others. Well, again, that's something that's hard for me because when I go about my daily business, if I'm walking or doing something, I'm always thinking of something else. And if someone's over there asking for help, I just usually pass them by. I don't even pay attention. So again, that's something you need to get your mind. So you've got part of your mind on now, and then part of your mind maybe as looking ahead. Simplicity of habits. Another one that says, why do you need all these complicated toys and all that type of stuff. And then a spirit of renovation. I mean, a spirit that you always want to improve yourself. Fostering of tolerance. Again, this goes after you've studied and you become nice and you want to help others. You're very much more tolerant because you understand where they are on the spiritual scale. And then the courage to place yourself second to serving. Another wonderful thing. And then perseverance in goodness. So I wanted to go through that because there you want to say, okay, how do we become perfect? So I thought this is a great example of the spirit world, meaning Andre Luis in this instance, and this is all in my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, is giving you a blueprint on how to improve yourself. And that is very important. So let me go back to where we were with Be Perfect, chapter 17 in the Gospel of Spiritism. So this is what Allan Kardec says. The truly good person is the one who complies with the law of justice, love, and charity in their highest degree of purity. If they examine their conscience concerning their own actions, they will ask themselves if they have violated those laws, if they have practiced any evil, if they have done all the good that was possible, if they have voluntarily disregarded any occasion to be useful, if anyone has a complaint to make of them, and finally, if they have done to others everything that they would wish done to themselves. So I repeated that small section. But again, this is kind of the core, and this is what I went over in that poem from Andre Luis. Then he goes on to say, they deposit their faith in God, in his goodness. Again, this is a trust in God in your faith, in his justice and in his wisdom. Now, again, this is a very important sentence. Their faith in God, in his goodness, in his justice, and in his wisdom. They know that without his permission, nothing can happen, so they submit themselves in all things to his will. So how many times have we, when we look at other people, and this is before I became a spiritist, and I saw people saying, yeah, I accept that. And I thought to myself, why are they so passive? I mean, to get anything done in this world, you need to be aggressive. You need to be a go-getter, right? You need to keep fighting through. Well, I mistook when they said, yes, I know this happened to me. I mistook that. These are, for a lot of people, maybe not all, some people are passive, but I mistook what, the people really weren't, and I misunderstood their passiveness. It wasn't passiveness. It was understanding of the situation and that they had something to learn. It doesn't stop them, and it doesn't stop us knowing that God does everything in his goodness and his justice and his wisdom. It doesn't ever stop us from being aggressive towards our goal. Well, all it means is when we don't achieve that goal and there's obstacle after obstacle after obstacle stopping us from getting that goal, then we need to stop and think, okay, oh, like everything's stopping me from this. Why? That's when you got to start kind of step back and say, okay, what are the signs and signals the spirits are giving to me? Sometimes it can be dreams. Sometimes it can just be that everything you try to do doesn't work. Or it could be that is the right thing, that when you want to do something, everything just opened up perfectly. I've had both happen, right? I've had a part where my wife and I wanted to sell our house and buy another house, and that everything we looked at, it was either already sold. I mean, it was amazing. One after another. Anything we liked was off the market before we could. And the market wasn't that hot, right? It wasn't like this is super hot market. It was like this is everything we wanted didn't work out. Then we went to buy land, and we didn't like the land anywhere. There's always something wrong. There's some zoning thing, or extra floodplain or whatever. So we kind of said, oh, okay, well, it looks like they don't want us to do that. But then when we decided, okay, we're going to go refinance the house, tear it down to its studs, and remodel it. It just at the bank, we found a great builder, did a wonderful job. Um, it just went like clockwork. Everything worked out perfect. That tells you. So you need to look at these things. Again, when I was younger and I wanted to, my whole life, being in high school, my young life, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to go to the Air Force. Well, in my senior year, just before I was going to try and apply to these colleges, my eyes went out on me, right? I wasn't 20/20 anymore. And that was back before you could have eye surgery. And so there's no way I could be a pilot. And that cut that off. Well, I wasn't meant to be. So these are the things where we have to submit ourselves to his will. And so instead of being angry and sad and petulant about we can't do that what we really want, we should think about it and go, okay, well, that door is closed. What's other door do I want open? And then amazingly, some other door will open for you and you'll know what to do. So we carry on what he says. Good people have faith in the future, which is the reason to put spiritual possessions before those of a temporary nature. Now, see, that doesn't mean you're passive. It means that you're still aggressive, but you're trying to be aggressive towards the goal that is pointed to your goal that was probably set in your life when you're in the spirit world. That was your trials on earth and your episodes. So it's all about really being aggressive, but trying to filter out and understand what goal you should be aggressive as. And look, and you won't always be successful. I have not completely, there's no way. But then when you finally hit your hard head that that's not what's supposed to happen, then you go, okay, let's do this. So that's very important. Then he also says, men and women who possess the sentiments of charity and love do good for the sake of goodness, without waiting for payment of any kind. They repay evil with good and take up the defense of the weak against the strong, and always sacrifice their own interest in the name of justice. These kind of people encounter satisfaction in the benefits they are able to spread, in the service they are able to render, and in the happiness they promote, in the tears they are able to dry, and in the consolation they offer to those who are afflicted. Their first impulse is to always think of others before themselves, and to look after these interests before looking after their own. On the other hand, the selfish person always calculates the benefits and losses arising from any generous action. And boy, that's been me for many, many years. And I don't know if I'm on the previous sentence. I'm kind of in between those two sentences. I try to help others, but I do like say, well, can I afford that? Right? I kind of try to keep to myself what I believe my basic needs are. So I'm not on that. I do calculate the benefits and losses, so I'm not there yet. So I've analyzed that, right? So I know I need to be there. Okay. Talking about signs and signals, we are asked a good question. Is there such a thing as destiny? For example, is someone born to become a king, a president of a country, etc.? And the answer is absolutely yes. And you can read a lot about this. If you read Emmanuel's book, Psychograph by Chico Xavier, It gives you a lot of examples. There's other examples through other spiritist literature, but the book On the Way to the Light, which talks about the whole, how the spirit world has guided the history of the world. And to give you a couple of examples, Napoleon, now, so just give you some examples and some things that happen and don't happen according to what the spirit world wanted. Napoleon was destined to become the leader of France. And Emmanuel says, yes, we put Napoleon on France, and his job was to reorganize France, and get it out of the chaos. He goes, but we were kind of worried because he's awfully a good military person. And he goes, in the spirit world, when he saw that he went and he attacked Egypt, he said, oh, he's coming back to where he's been before. And so he overstepped what his destiny was by taking over all of Europe. Now, the spirit world made sure, Russia, when he invaded Russia, wasn't very good, destroyed his armies. And then in Waterloo again, you see all these little things that happen. And when you read history now, you think, oh, okay, the spirit world probably played a little pivotal part in that part. So the answer is yes, some people are destined for these different things. Socrates was a minister of Jesus. He came to the earth to become a philosopher and spread his knowledge. He foreshadowed Jesus. Henry the Navigator of Portugal, the spirit world put him in that place. And so he could start the whole, about how to navigate and, currents and all that type of stuff. So when Columbus was ready to find, the new world, although I know other people found it before and there were people on it, but, let's just talk about general history, that would all happen. So absolutely, there's absolutely destiny. And now when you say a king or a president or whatever, there's also destiny for each of us. We could be destined to be, married to a person and have great kids. And those kids could then be the great king or whatever, right? Allan Kardec, when he, the person who codified the Spirits book, he was destined to codify the Spirits book. Now, let's say the spirit world, this really brings up an interesting thing. Let's say the spirit world wants someone to come and codify, let's say, make the Spirits book. Now, it's very interesting with Chico. That's why the lectures by Geraldino are very important. What he said, and this was in English, and I don't remember the URL. I put it in this, but I don't remember where it is. But he said, one time he asked Chico, what would have happened if Allan Kardec didn't do the Spirits book? And Chico said, well, you know what? They had like 50 other people who were going to do things similar. But Allan Kardec was the one that was really successful. So like any good organization, this is what's so exciting about learning about Spiritism, because the more you know about the spirit world, you recognize that we do kind of the same, not as well, right? Very imperfect, but we're, that's why you can tell humans are just modeled after this. So they had backup plans. In fact, one of the most interesting backup plans was the Apostle Paul. What Emmanuel said in the book on the road to the light, they said that the spirit world knew that the apostles around Jesus were kind of more within their own religious centric, and they weren't really interested in promoting the new word to other people, the Gentiles, anyone outside of the Jewish faith. So they had Paul at the ready. And after Jesus died, that's when Paul, on the road to Damascus, when Jesus met him, and he had that big revelation, because of course he was the persecutor before, and then he became like, this guy is just focused like, no one else is focused. Okay, now this has happened to me. I'm going to spread this. So again, that was a backup plan. They had backup plans for Allan Kardec. In fact, I don't know if I remember the person's name. There was a medium, I think it was Andrew something, Andrew Davis or something like that, who wrote a lot of books. They were quite popular at the time about the spirit world, all about the spirits. He goes, but the reason he kind of failed in getting Spiritism going is because he had talked to priests and reverends in the United States, and he agreed to take out the part about reincarnation because they were really pushing back against reincarnation. And by taking that really, one of the fulcrums of Spiritism, because how do you explain karma? If you don't have reincarnation, how do you explain really the rest, right? It doesn't match. The puzzle doesn't come together without reincarnation. His books, were, sold for a bit, but then it just died. And of course, then, Allan Kardec became the real codifier. So when there's something very important, the spirit world may have, a couple candidates for that king, or they may just, put all that stuff. So again, it all depends on the importance and how they want to move things. One other thing, just another anecdote. So when there's somebody important, like Allan Kardec, when he wrote his spirits book, he had all sorts of spirits around him giving him inspiration. When Chico Xavier wrote the books, let's as an example, by Andre Luis, that whole series of books. He didn't just have Andre Luis standing over him and psychographing, okay, this is the paragraph. There was I forgot what people said, but there was 8 to 10 spirits around and then concentrating on what they wanted to say. In the books by the Reverend G. Val Owen, there's always teams of spirits. But what they do is they have a team of spirit with that medium, and then they pick one spirit who is have a better affinity, right? They have a better connection to that medium, and they put their thoughts through that one spirit, and that spirit tries to interpret and meld together those thoughts and put it in whatever modern language, to that time person or that medium, so that person can pick it up in a language they can understand. Because a lot of spirits, they haven't been on Earth for 300 years or so, and they're using, grammar and syntax that has passed really the culture by. So anyway, I went off on a tangent there, but I hope that explains a lot to people, and it's very interesting because you can go, just when you think about your own life and, where you went, right? Your Uncle Charlie called and they said, well, we got a job for you. And all of a sudden you're in this, job family that you never thought you wanted, but now you've been there for 40 years and you're retired, right? And was Uncle Charlie's call, was that a chance or was that synchronicity? Was that part of pushing you on the path that you should go? Think about those things. A lot happens to you, a lot, that you have no idea that you're being, it's like kindergartners that don't understand that they're being, kind of pushed to one side. They just kind of keep going, oblivious to everything. And we're a lot like that. But when you study Spiritism, your eyes are more open and you see, okay. Well, I see someone's pushing me on that direction. It's very interesting. Okay. Let's get back to the important person, Allan Kardec, and chapter 17, be perfect. So this is what he says. The good person is always good, humane, and benevolent with everyone, without distinction as to race or creed, because they see all men and women as brothers and sisters. Now, to us, that sounds completely reasonable, without distinction as to race or creed. But remember, this was written in the 1850s, and there were all sorts of distinctions between race and creed. And a lot of that when they thought, oh, we're superior and we can lord it over all these people, right? So this is why a lot of people push back on the spirits book. Not to mention the fact when they said marriage is between two spirits, and you can come back as a male or female, right? They didn't say, and they also said, well, divorce laws, those are human laws. There's no such thing as no divorce between spirits that don't want to get together. So again, those are just a couple of the things why the Catholic Church burned the Spirits book, early on. In fact, a great one to why I'm off course a bit here. A great thing to see about this about Allan Kardec is I would recommend everyone, if you haven't seen it already, if you have Netflix, is please go see the movie Kardec, because it is so good. Let me bring that up. And it's just called Kardec. It's Netflix. I think it's owned by Netflix, so it won't disappear. Look it up, Kardec, and watch it, because it tells you about the life of Allan Kardec. And of course, if you want his books, look up Kardec space PDF, and you will find all of his books on PDF. So I'll leave that up here for a while so people can read that. Okay. I'll carry on with Allan Kardec wrote. They respect all sincere convictions in others and never launch reprobation against those who think otherwise. Charity guides them in every circumstance, because they know that those who prejudice others with evil words, who injure others with their pride by disregarding their susceptibilities, or who, knowing that they could avoid it, do not draw back at the thought of causing suffering, or yet a contrariety, however small, lack the obligation to love one's neighbor, and so do not deserve the clemency of the Lord. They do not harbor rancor, hate, nor yet desire vengeance. Instead, they follow the example of Jesus by forgiving and forgetting all offenses, only remembering the benefits received, because they know that we ourselves shall be forgotten only as much as we are able to forgive others. In fact, we were just having a family discussion about this forgiving and forgetting. So there's been friends, right, that have done just horrible things. That's happened to everyone. And what I tell people, when we were all talking, even in our family conference, is that, yes, we should forgive them, but that doesn't mean we have to have them over to our house again, because we don't trust them. We don't trust their action. As an example, there's someone who is a drug addict, and, God bless them, but you can't really trust them, because if you invite them into their house, most likely they'll try and steal everything they can. So one should forgive them and try to forget what they've done wrong, but you can certainly say, no, you can't be part of my life. So that is what I say. Now, a more perfect person, someone much more perfect than I, would let them in their house and take whatever they wanted. In fact, there's a story where Chico came home one day and he found a thief in his house. And he said, oh, okay, what would you like? And the thief goes, he says, I don't have much. Can I make you something to eat? And he gave him something to eat. And he goes, you know what? This new suit I have would fit you just nicely. And he gave him his new suit. And then the thief was like amazed. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to leave now. And he started going out the window. He goes, no, don't go out the window and over the wall. People will think you're a thief. Go out the front door and the front gate. Now that is perfection, right? That I'm not capable of yet. I would probably react not well if I found a thief in my house, but Chico did. It just shows you how much, if I can just approach Chico, not to, I know I can't approach Jesus. He's just way much too good for me. I'll try, but and just giving you these stories that how wonderful some people really are, and that are unbelievable. But someday, hopefully, I'll get there. I don't think I would get there this life. I'll try, but that's maybe a bridge too far for me. Let me carry on. These people, these kind of people, are indulgent with the weaknesses of others because they know that they also need indulgence. Remembering that Christ said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." They do not take pleasure in looking for defects in others, nor in calling attention to them. And if necessity obliges them to do so, they always try to look for the good qualities so as to lessen the bad ones. Good people study their own imperfections and work unceasingly to combat them using all their strengths, so that tomorrow they will be able to say that they are just a little better than they were the day before. And to me, I think that is the most important, is for us to analyze our imperfections and know what we have to improve. And that's what I try to do on my programs, is I try to expose what I think my imperfections are. So other people could probably do a better job than I can. But to be honest of where I think, well, I'm not there yet. And that's what I have to improve. And I think if we all think of ourselves in that manner, with our temper, our attitudes, our prejudices, and just, know that we don't have to sacrifice ourselves and be doormats. We can still focus. We can be indignant when things, are wrong in our eyes, but we just don't lose our temper. We don't spread primitive emotions everywhere. We focus our energies and try to repair or reconcile whatever situation we are in. And a lot of that is reconciling our mind and listening to our conscience. The good person, this is Allan Kardec writes, never tries to emphasize the importance of their own spirit or talents at the expense of others, but on the contrary, they take every opportunity to highlight in others whatever these people may have that is useful. They are not conceited about their riches, nor of any personal advantage, knowing that everything has been given to them may be taken away. They use but do not abuse the possessions which have been conceded to them, because they are only a deposit for which they will be required to give full account. And of course, that is important. Again, over and over and over, we have been told in Spiritism that whatever we have, if we accumulate wealth throughout our lives, that is wealth on loan from God, right? That is given to us for a reason, hopefully to use for a good reason, to help other people, and to use it wisely, not to leverage it and use it to take advantage of people. As an example, using wealth not right? So let's talk about Wall Street for a second. Let's talk about all the arbitrage that goes on. Now, I know some arbitrage has some reason, but there's a lot of hedge funds that just make money out of small little variations. And why do they do that? Who does that help? They do this super fast trading, and they take advantage of the small market, and they sell these hedge fund stuff to the pension funds in the middle of America, where they know they're giving them a less than stellar return. That is not the way that God and Jesus wants us to use our wealth. When we have wealth, it's to create things, it's to give jobs to people, it's to treat them fairly, it's to be honest, it's to try and make every person, as productive as possible. We're not here to put people on the dole and keep them on there forever. That's not why they're on earth. They need to learn to work and produce and support themselves, at the same time increasing their spirituality while they are getting at least the minimum for their material existence. And that becomes more logical when one sees and understands and studies Spiritism, is we're on earth to really improve ourselves, to become better people. And the atmosphere and environment and our current politics and our current, how everything works is geared for us to find ourselves and to improve ourselves. It's not to enrich ourselves by material goods that we can't take with us. That's why that's why one of the things Henri Louis said, simplicity of habits. You don't need that 6,000 square foot house. If you do and you have a big family, God bless you. If there's nothing evil in that, nothing wrong in having 4 cars when you only need 1. You're giving people jobs. You're not hurting anybody. But, if you're investing in things where you're doing scams and things like that, that is not good. So anyway, think about that. Think about how to become perfect. This is why this is so important for all of us to listen to, is how we can become perfect, how we can grow in our spirituality. And a lot of that is by listening to our conscience, analyzing ourselves, just as Allan Kardec said, and trying to find opportunities to do good for other people. So I want to wrap this up. Again, if you'd like to learn how to ascend in life, right, is read my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism. And I think it would give you a good blueprint to go through and really understand how to make that leap and start following a detailed plan of how to start changing yourself. Because that's what we're here on earth, right? We're not here just to keep our mouth shut. That's a good beginning. But we're really here is to rewire our brain. And why do I say that? Is because the only thing you're taking with you is your personality and your character. And if you can improve your personality and character, my God, you have achieved a great victory. And this is what this book is all about, is how to rewire your brain. And it's all followed by the poem by Andre Luis. So anyway, I want to say thanks, everyone. Please, again, share this video, share your knowledge of Spiritism. Go out and talk to people about Spiritism. Go out and talk to people, be calm. I'm talking about this right now in times of our current pandemic. I've had videos out there talking about from communications from spirits telling us, spread the good word. This will pass. Those who have more spirituality have a much greater predilection to get through this without problems. So it's the anxiety and the stress put out by, these news organizations that want to get more viewers by frightening people. That's kind of the real negative that we have with us. So do your best, make everyone feel comfortable and relaxed. We'll all get through this together. God bless everyone, and good night.